if you're going to have one of these very crucial conversations, particularly if it's about something about the leader's style, that, let's say, for example, that the leader is very forceful. They're there because they have sufficient ego, that they've risen in the ranks, they bring some talents, but they may not have sufficient respect for the expertise around the table of people who are, not risen to their level. And so they come in and they're very dominating. And this is depressing morale. It's keeping people from putting on the table the information that would inform the best decisions. How do you give that kind of feedback upwards? That's really hard. Well, what you can't do, you can't say, can we have a talk, please? I need to be honest with you. You're too dominating, and you have to stop being dominating. Because you're asking them to have a personality change, and that's not going to happen. But what you can do is you can identify the very specific behavior. So, for example, in that situation, you might say, I need to give you some feedback because I think it's going to help us work better and you get the best out of this team. What I observe happening is you tend to come into meetings and state very strongly your position. Then you ask if there are any problems, if anybody has a different view. Truthfully, nobody is willing to talk at that point because they already know where you stand. And what I'd suggest you do instead is come in, lay the issue on the table, lay out what you're trying to achieve, and ask for input first. Then weigh up what you've heard, and then let us know what you're deciding. You'll still do it, forcefully, but now you will have benefited from all the input. See, that's something the individual can change if they see it as within their own interest to do so. So you have to be very, very defined and specific and almost narrow in the feedback you're giving so that it can be operationalized if you're successful at conveying what you're trying to convey. Does that make sense to you? Okay. Another important point is this, and again, these are all tough points. Research shows that when people have very meteoric rises in their careers and they reach a very high level and then their careers derail, almost always their career derailed because of some poor interpersonal behavior. They stepped on too many toes. Yeah, they got where they wanted to go, but they stepped on too many toes, and as soon as they made one mistake, the long knives came out and everyone took advantage of it. Research shows that they always were aware of the behavior. What they weren't aware of was the actual impact that behavior was having on others. In their minds, they rationalized it. When I blow my top at them, they know that's just me. They don't take it seriously. Oh no, they go home with knots in their stomach. They come to work, with a knot in their stomach. Or, somebody who lacks gender sensitivity or something like that and is making off-color remarks. Oh, they know it's just me. It's not. No, they don't. You see, so if you're going if the situation has become such that the work of the team is being impeded or endangered, such that you decide you need to risk having this conversation, you can't sugarcoat it. You have to actually explain the intensity of the impact. Otherwise, the individual doesn't have sufficient information in reality to make the change. Change is so hard to do. And unless you really understand why you need to make the change, you're not going to be able to do it. So conveying the depth of feelings is part of the role if you need to do this and you judge it's important to do.